This really is the most mind-blowing and mind-bending approach to learning the neck of the guitar. And that's because all we're going to be doing is showing you how you can look at the neck of the guitar as a series of 3-note chords called triads. Now these chord shapes, these triads, are not just going to help enhance your understanding of the neck because they're also foundational to all music. So I guess the bonus point is that it's going to help your understanding of music in general, but most importantly, it will help you map out this neck in a really beautifully organized way. So definitely put on your thinking cap for this. I do think this enhances everyone's ability to play the guitar. And last thing that I want to note before we jump into the actual lesson is that this introduction part might look a little different aesthetically to the rest of the video, and that's simply because I accidentally deleted the first introduction part. So I just wanted to get that out there in case it looks a little different. That's the reason, but all the content, all the information is good to go. I think it's really important stuff. So as I said, put that thinking cap on, let's get rolling and hit this lesson. So what I'm going to show you in this video is an exercise that's basically just a simple chord progression that's been broken up into these 3-note chords called triads, and I think you'll see when I'm done explaining everything just how much this information will catapult you into another dimension of understanding exactly how this instrument works. And of course, if you agree with what I'm saying in this video, subscribe to the channel for more easy guitar practice. It's always super helpful when you subscribe, and of course, it's always greatly appreciated. As I already said, this exercise is based off of a really simple chord progression. It's a standard rock progression. It's also known as the 1, 2, 4, 5 progression, and in this context, the G major chord is going to act as our 1 chord, which means that the A minor is our 2 chord, and then the C major is our 4, and the D major is our 5. So you might already be hearing a little bit of that classic. There's the progression, but remember, we're breaking these chords into smaller shapes called triads, but you also need to remember that each 3-note chord is a complete chord. So just think about that, sit on that, absorb it, bask in it. So when we play a bar chord, we actually only need to be using the integral 3 notes, which are the 1, the 3, and the 5, meaning the first note in the scale, the root note, the third note in the scale, and the 5th note in the scale comprise our most important chord shapes, the major shapes, the minor shapes, the augmented shapes, and the diminished shapes. So just keep that in mind that each 3-note segment we're playing is a full chord. So I'm about to flash the actual exercise, the way that we go through this progression. So remember, as you're watching, you don't need to go through the exercise at the speed that I played the exercise. Go through it at your own speed. The most important thing is absorbing the shapes, getting those shapes under your fingers, and then of course stay tuned after the exercise because I'm actually going to break down how these shapes will help you map out the neck and get you more familiar with the neck and ultimately improve your playing. And really quick, before we jump into the exercise, I'm also going to flash the tabs, so I would recommend pausing the screen when the tabs flash, taking a screenshot, and I think that's the best way to have them pulled up and ready to go as we move through the rest of the lesson. All right, now that you've actually gotten to see the exercise, you may have even paused to try it out a little bit for yourself, get some of the shapes under your fingers. Now that you've gotten to sit with the tabs, I want to just throw out a few disclaimers before we fully jump into the explanation, and that's really don't look at this as the coolest way to play this progression. This is just a way for you to deepen your understanding of the neck and be able to connect everything and create this map so that you've got the best understanding of your guitar and you can ultimately express your creativity fully on this instrument. And the second thing I want to note is that you probably aren't going to fully connect the dots or grasp this concept right away. It will take some time, it will take some practice with these shapes, but if you stick with it, it will be massively beneficial to your playing. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. The first thing I want to go over is that we should be noting, or you should note on your end, this is the starting point, that there are 3 major chords in this progression. And each one of those triad shapes was its own representation of that major chord. So the 4 shapes that you've got in G major are their own G major chord. The 4 shapes you've got in C major are their own major chord. And the 4 shapes you have in D major are their own major chord. And you'll notice that they're configured differently. So you actually have 12 different major chord shapes just in this progression. Now the minor shape is a little different, and every minor chord, this is maybe just a bonus, but every minor chord is not just comprised of the 1, 3, 5. It's the 1, the flat 3, and the 5. So you have your G major triad. I'm going to use this shape as an example on the D, G, and B strings. We've got the 5, 4, 3. That shape, if you move it up 2 frets, you've got an A major. Now note, in those shapes, we have taken this note and flatted it. It's called a flat third. That's the big difference between the major and minor, is just a flat third. So get familiar with that difference as you're playing through this shape, right? You don't have to play it on time with a metronome. You really want to let the shapes sink in and actually understand their function. So that's the first aspect to using these shapes to understand the neck. We've got 3 major chords that each have their own configuration, and then we've got 1 minor chord, and the big difference there is a flat third. And of course, I'm going to note one more time, you can recognize that flat third up here as well. Right? If it was major, just like we did down here, but we've got the A minor, so we flat this. And there's your flat third for those triads. Okay. The most important concept is that 3 major shape concept. Okay? So we're playing our G majors here. All right, but we're playing our C majors like that. Okay? So 2 different positions, and then the D, we're actually starting on that kind of open D position. So you might be familiar with that. And in this open D position, we've got the 5, the 1, the 3. And then as we move down the neck, we're replacing the 3 and putting it here. Same notes, just a different configuration. All right? And the same thing goes for these shapes, right? We've got our open E shape, and we're just moving it up to the G. All right? And then we're breaking it into those 3-note triads. So what you can start recognizing is that, okay, wait a second. If I take that D shape and I move it up here, I've got a G. So couldn't I have played my G triads? Couldn't I have played them like that? And the answer is yes. Couldn't you have played them up here? Similar to how we played the C shapes? Yeah, you absolutely could have. So just that fact alone, just that recognition should allow you to see, oh my goodness, I can move this G everywhere and have some different flavors under my fingers. So although you might have felt like, oh, we only learned, 4 shapes in the key of G, well, if you start recognizing how you can move the other shapes, you actually got 12 shapes in the key of G. And this can be super helpful for a variety of reasons. I just mentioned, adding some different flavors. These can come in handy as your main rhythm components on guitar. They can come in as some melody. They can help you soloing. I'll link the video that we just posted about arpeggio solos, but that basically gives you an understanding of how arpeggios can work. So if you've got something in the key of G and you want to use all of those G shapes, you could start to do that based on your knowledge of triads. So I'm going to show you really quick on my own, right? If I just said, okay, I'm going to take the 7th fret and the 10th fret and everything in between, I'm going to try to figure out what I can grab there. Well, I know that I have some B minor triads or B major triads in that position. I can hit some G major, the the ones that I just showed you. We've got some C positions, and of course those can all be translated to diminished, to augmented, to minor. We've got F, but it's just different positions. But you can learn this entire neck if you just look at it as these small triad shapes. So I'm gonna leave it there. The big thing for you to do with this is run through the progression, but then see how you can change, okay, where else could you play those C triads? Knowing that the G major, we played it like this, oh, I can move the C and move it up, right? So that's up to you. If you can work through that on your own, that's gonna provide the most benefit to your playing, is getting familiar with these on your own, and how can you move through these shapes or adjust the shapes so that you're playing them all over the neck, and then you'll have access to so much on the guitar, and you'll ultimately have this great understanding. So if this was helpful and this left you in that, oh my goodness, now I'm looking at the neck differently moment, definitely subscribe to the channel. Like I said, it's super helpful, it's super valuable, and we always appreciate it. And with that, I'll leave you to it, and we'll see you next time.